Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roberta Ridley, Chairwoman of the African American Genealogical Society of Fort Wayne, and I welcome you to another great session of research tools and tips with the African American Genealogical Library here at the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I hope everybody's all cuddled up wherever they are, blanket on the lap, hot tea, hot coffee, hot cocoa, or something, a pad and pencil in hand. And we are here really today to help you with your research in genealogy. There was a hands-on opportunity, and we're doing a hands-on opportunity via Zoom. If you're on your way to the library, then we'll be able to help you directly, face-to-face, with some of your brick wall questions, hopefully, as well as just standard procedure in doing genealogy research. So I think the real comfortable thing to do today in order to get progress for everyone that has chosen to join us is that if you have questions, I think this is the time to just kind of open up and have everyone hit us with their best shot and their favorite question or their dooming question, if you will. And from time to time, I may throw something in as a did you know type. So we have done some really great workshops on best resources and techniques for doing African American genealogy over the past couple of months. Hopefully you had an opportunity to tune in on that. This is also an opportunity that if you were in attendance to either one of those sessions, if you still have questions from those, you can ask those today. So, hands up, who wants to be first? I want to welcome the names that I'm seeing right now, and that is Leslie and Marquita and Elena. And thank you in particular for joining us. We had quite a few people signed up, and hopefully they will join us momentarily. I'm going to just do a teacher thing. Let's go with Leslie Anderson. Leslie, you joined us. I'm guessing that you've had questions or some concerns in your research. You can unmute yourself and go ahead with any questions that you might have right now. Are you there, Leslie? Okay. She may have gone to go get that hot chocolate. We'll move on. Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm here. I'm tuning in from my phone, and I'm always very confused from my phone. So apologies. I'm looking my real Saturday self, so I'm not turning on my camera. I'm glad to be here. I'm always I'm from Virginia. My research is in Virginia, and I do have a couple people who make it into Indiana. I think the place is called French Lick, but they don't make it there till the 1900s. And I'm always interested to see what Black folks are doing across the country. So thank you for having this meeting today, making it available.
Well, it's our pleasure to do so. And I want to remind everyone that you don't have to be concentrating on individuals who are in Indiana. This is the base for our society is by the grace of the Almighty, located here at the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So we do have access to a tremendous amount of resources to help people across the country if you're having trouble, or hopefully to give you direction as to what you possibly can follow where you're actually located. So am I to understand that you are wanting to follow the people that's ended up in French Lick, Indiana, Leslie?
Thanks, I had to get back. At some point, yes. It's not a high priority, frankly, but I was surprised to find them there. I think they actually started in Pennsylvania, moved to Baltimore by the early 1900s, and then went out west. It's been a while since I've worked on that line, so this seemed a good opportunity to loop into your organization.
Okay. So do you have a primary question that's haunting you or holding you back that we can take a look at, or no?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll plod along here, and maybe you'll be stimulated by some of what you hear, and just raise your hand and or to speak up, and we'll address it. Okay.
Thanks so much.
It's my pleasure. Again, thank you for joining us. Marquita, are you ready?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? How's everyone?
I'm very good. What can I say? I'm doing the life thing full throttle. How about that? Okay. What's your question for today?
Well, I'm researching Tennessee, Williamson County, Nashville, Davidson County, Murray County, and I'm finding DNA matches in Indiana. I actually have a sister who was born in Indiana, but I'm not sure how I'm having matches to Indiana.
You're not sure how she said that?
I'm having matches. I'm having DNA matches to Indiana, and I don't know if they come from Tennessee and moved to Indiana, or I'm not sure how I'm having these Indiana connections.
You're not sure how you have these Indiana connections. These individuals that have been identified as being in Indiana, they indicate that they're born in Davidson County, or?
No, I don't know how. I'm just finding them in my DNA match.
Okay, hold on just a second. Okay. So okay. You're not sure how they got into Indiana.
Okay, I have.
It came up in a DNA match. Is that what
I have Ridley matches too.
Excuse me?
I have Ridley matches from Williamson County. And I think some in Indiana, I believe. Well, you're there. So
Yeah.
George Ridley. He was married to my two-time great aunt, which was a Darden and Boxley. So I'm just, it's the Ridleys that I'm having, because I can go back with the Ridleys and coming forward and backwards.
Go back with them. And so is it the Ridleys that you're connected to in Indiana?
Yes.
And what are the names?
Let me see if I can. Let's see. Let's see. Okay.
While you're looking, I'll give you a little background so as we don't have a lot of dead air. The Ridleys that I am connected with out of Tennessee do come out of Nashville, and the shall I say the matriarch of that connection is a Edith Ridley, and Edith, who was my great grandmother. She was the property of Captain George Ridley, who came to Tennessee by way of Abbeville, Virginia, and was considered a pioneer settler. He was one of 7 families that actually came into the area of Nashville, now known as Nashville, but was previously known as Fort Nashville, when those 7 families actually migrated to that area immediately after the Revolutionary War, based on land grants to Captain George Ridley. Now, ultimately, this man had 14 children, and practically all 14 of them had enslaved property. Over 700 slaves. So it's hard at this point to determine for sure actual DNA connection, but if you have a DNA connection, then I would venture to say that it is out of the Edith Ridley line. And there are several children that are connected to Daniel Ridley, who was my great-grandfather, and Tony Ridley, who was his father. Both Edith and Tony, the property of, at one time, Captain George Ridley, Henry Ridley, and Christopher Ridley. If that helps at all.
I think so. I haven't gotten far. I've gotten far back as George Ridley, that was born in 1840, and died in 1910. And that's the one that married Darden, Mariah Darden Foxley. And I come
George Ridley that I am referring to,
Captain
George Ridley, he was, would have been born in the late 1700s.
Okay.
Then he did actively serve in the Revolutionary War, and he had a rank of captain. He would have had a son, more than likely, of George, or a grandson. In 1840, you said was George Ridley that you had?
Yes. Yes.
On likeliness, that is his son. I didn't even think to bring my own pedigree information with me today. I try not to concentrate too much on my own research when I'm in a situation like this. But I'm more than happy to receive inquiry or from you directly. My direct email is roberta.f.ridley@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can share whatever names you have, and I'm more than happy to do that. According to my research information, Edith had about 6 children, and strangely enough, in all of my research, I do not find that Daniel, my great-grandfather, mentions anybody but John, his brother, a brother by another mother, I might add.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so he's not on the probate record that I received with Edith, showing Daniel as her son, and she's housed with another enslaved person that is mentioned in the probate from Captain George Ridley, and his name was Benjamin Ridley. And the archivist at the Franklin County Library felt that Benjamin and Edith were husband and wife. They may have been paired together at some point in time, but all of the previous document for the birth of Daniel indicates that Tony Ridley and Edith Ridley are the parents. His death certificate says exactly that. And he does indicate many documents of military records from the deposition from the Civil War that identifies John Ridley as a brother. And there's a couple of John Ridleys as well. But I have a lot of information that is not directly applicable to my direct line. And it doesn't mean that it won't be a help to you. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Up next, Elena, if you're there, we can take yours now.
She says she doesn't have any questions. She's just listening right now.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Elena, just tap in, wave your hand, and we'll get you loaded. In-house, we have joining us okay. Do you want to ask a question?
I do. I'm Emily Guerrero. I'm here with my husband, Ricardo Guerrero, and we found a document related to his mom, but it has incorrect information. What's the process to make the corrections? So depends on where the document came from, right?
Repeat the question for them.
Okay, Emily Guerrero is joining us in house, and she is with her husband, and also wanting to ask a question in regarding his ancestry, and that they have documentation about his grandmother, it was his mother, and much of the information on the documentation is incorrect. If you have a document like that and you know that it's incorrect, what do you do to get it corrected on public data? With Ancestry.com, they do have an area where you can cite the exact document in question and verify what the error is, and they will update it with proper backup.
Yeah, we're good.
You can request that. Is there anybody else that wants to comment on that?
Ask who's trying to talk.
Who's trying to talk, please?
Whitney began a love of family history by sitting in with her grandmother and hearing the stories of her ancestors. While getting BA English from Brigham Young University, she took classes of family history.
Excuse me. Whoever is talking is really garbled, and I don't know who it is.
Whitney is administrative assistant for the Genealogical
Something else
Association.
is happening.
Professional genealogist specializing in English research. There will be questions at the end. So,
Bear with us just a moment, please.
Allison, there's no other, I don't see volume.
thank you, Maria. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today.
Leslie? Leslie, are you talking or trying to share something?
So the objective
She muted herself.
Okay, so that's
She was watching another video.
that's where it was coming from. All right, so we were talking about contacting Ancestry.com with the source of the document with information, with backup information that allows them to correct the public data. Can I ask Emily, what is the document that you have?
We actually had it printed off here at the Allen County Library, and it's his mom's birth certificate. And it says that she's the birth of her half sister, but that's not her half sister, that's her full sister. Down in here.
So repeat it for the audience.
Okay, so she has a document that she printed from Ancestry.com.
This came from the library.
Yeah, it's sources Ancestry.com
Okay.
is what she has. And it is for a sibling of her husband, of a sibling of his mother. And the documentation is indicating the birth of the sister.
Claiming her as a half sister.
Claiming her as a half sister.
She is in fact a full
But she's
sister.
a full-blood sister.
She did have two half sisters, but they were older.
Older.
I had Josie and my Aunt Juanita.
Okay, so what it looks like is his mother has, excuse me, everybody. His mother does have half sisters, but there are older siblings. And the sibling that they have listed is a younger sibling and is not a half sister. So with this information out here, then obviously it's incorrect unless for some reason or another, and I have to be, straight out about it, unless for some reason or another, there's some other scientific documentation that indicates that something's not right as we know. Okay. So the thing that we would want to know is if there was a DNA qualification for her to be identified as a half sister, and if it is not, and if it is proven, then Ancestry.com should be notified, because a lot of times people feed information into Ancestry.com and they go from there.
Somebody might have put it in incorrect.
Yeah, I had that, just so for those of you who are listening, I had that personal experience myself. based on someone else feeding a family tree into Ancestry.com. And they fed into the family tree my father's first wife as the wife and the mother of all 9 children, when in fact, she was the mother of the first 2 children, the oldest 2 children. My mother had a child from a previous relationship, not even anywhere near the area. So when they married, they had 3 children with them, 2 from my father's marriage, 1 from my mother's relationship. And then from that union came 6 children. So there were 9 of us all together, but they had it listed like the first yes, the first wife was the mother of all 9 children.
So how do you change?
I almost had a heart attack, because it was like they wrote my mother completely out of the equation,
I got another question, Roberta.
Ancestry.com.
You see the pictures there?
Yes. Oh, wait, no.
She's like 16, 17. I'm real proud of her. She looks real militant. But I was wondering, can I change it and put one of her other beautiful pictures?
Somebody, if they have a picture like,
Question.
okay, Mr. Guerrero is asking, there's a picture that accompanies the aunt.
That's my mom.
This is your mom, okay.
Yeah, that's
So the
my
picture
mom.
that's on Ancestry.com is his mom, but they have her, in this picture, it's like, it looks very militant is what he's saying.
16,
And
17.
she's in her teens, but he would prefer to have a more amicable picture
Glamorous.
of his mom, something that is her true image. And how do you change that? So if there's a picture in there, it is not necessarily a picture that was chosen by Ancestry, or it could be based on a bunch of pictures, but it's probably from someone else who loaded this information onto a family tree with Ancestry.com. So you need to look at that and find out what the source is. Again, Ancestry.com can be challenged for certain information that's out there.
Oh. Will it tell us who posted that information? Or who's
Emily wants to
feeding?
know if they'll tell us who posted the picture. It depends on if whether or not it comes from a private or public page.
Okay.
Or a family. But I asked my uncle. He said,
That's only when you know.
We just need to take a look. We'll go out, unfortunately, for those of you who are not here in-house at Allen County Public Library, I will join the Guerreros on the floor to take a look at this and see, and hopefully we can get you some feedback on that question for those of you who may be equally interested. Okay, good? All right. Let's see, who have we got someone else joining us. Or was it Elena Elena wanted to wait? Okay, so
Kimberly, maybe.
Kimberly C. Welcome to the table. Do you have a question or something you'd like to share with us on the research today?
Hi there. I'm just kind of learning things. So I just thought I would just, kind of watch along and just trying to pick up tips. Hello to everybody, and hope everybody's finding lots of good information.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. And even though you're just sort of getting along, learning how to do what you need to do, feel very comfortable, please, in asking anything, ever how minor you may think it is. You'd be surprised how it can connect, and maybe someone else just hasn't thought to ask the question that you may have. Any roadblocks that you're knowledgeable of at this point?
I definitely have several, and I'm working through those. I have my grandfather was adopted. I guess I use the term loosely because back then there weren't a whole lot of formal adoptions, so there's nothing formal I've been able to find. So I've been trying to find his birth parents for quite some time. Our family has been looking for that, and so a few of us have done DNA to try to get a little research. Try to do the DNA path rather than the paper trail. And so we're making some progress, but it's almost like he fell out of the sky. It's just been very interesting.
That's a difficult situation to be in, without a doubt. And DNA oftentimes does lead to at least a clue. One of the things that I have found in assisting other people as far as undocumented adoptions is what I like to refer to them as. Family just did it like that back then. If someone couldn't take care of the child, you know, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, grandparent, just leave the child here. He'll be all right. She'll be okay. And that's what happened. And parents sometimes sent money back to help take care of the child, and sometimes they didn't. Name changes happen without documentation as well. So it's a strong possibility, and equally that the surname that you're looking for was different, other than the surname that he carried on forward.
Oh, it's definitely a different surname, and the family that raised him, we pretty much determined was not his family. There are people that are relatives of the family that raised him that have done DNA, and then our family's done DNA, and we don't match them. So we don't know where he came through, and we know that his name was changed. He had a sister, and their last names were changed to match the family that was taking care of them. So we know that it was not their name, but we don't know what their name was before that. But we know that wasn't their name. So we have no idea what it was or how they came to be with that family.
So the family in question, the family that he became a part of, did they have older children or no?
They had children, and back years and years ago, I guess, you know, I was too young and didn't know that my grandfather was not raised by his own family. And so he called her his cousin. So we thought that she was his cousin. They were raised as sister and brother, but they called each other cousin because they knew they weren't siblings. But the parents that raised them, we thought that was their aunt and uncle. But all of them that would have known anything have since passed. You know, they were all born in the early 1900s. So they're all of them who knew anything are gone. And the one that he called his cousin, we know that she did know some things, but I have no idea why it was never really, a whole lot of information was never really gathered. And someone did at one point kind of interview her about some different things with her life, but they never went into that portion of it, other than the fact that they were raised as being cousins, and thought of each other as either cousins or siblings as they were growing up. But of course, like I said, we've found that there is no blood relation.
May I ask, do you know what age he came into the family?
No. I know that when he was, and see, I'm because I was just planning to listen in. I don't have all my notes with me, and I'm not home. When he was, I think, about 10, I think he's a little more than 10, and I can find him in the census with the adoptive family. And then in the next census, he's a grown man. So he's in the census and he's somewhere else. I cannot find him anywhere before that. And so
because you don't know what surname you're looking for, right?
Right. And so, but I went through different areas of places that he lived and places that his adoptive family lived and some of their extended family places that they had lived, looking for him and his sister by their first names, where I was just going down the pages of the census records for children with those first names, because apparently they didn't change their first names, and I have not located them. So it's, I have no idea where he came from.
Okay. So we've combed the census pages in the previous census with this same family, and you've not located the given names of the two children in proximity to that family. That's what you're telling us, right?
Right. I've looked at the city where he grew up. I've looked at two of the neighboring counties. I've looked at the city where the adoptive parents came from, which is another city over from that other city. And I've looked at two of the cities from that. And I've also been, because we have ties to family in, I guess in Philadelphia, I've looked through some of that as well to kind of look for them, and I haven't. So I'm hoping, we're kind of in hopes that more of a stronger DNA match will come up to my relatives that are a generation up from me that have tested, but we don't have any strong matches at all, and those that do have a match don't know anything. And they're very small matches. They don't have any high matches for that side of the family. We have plenty of strong matches for the other side of the family, but we don't have them for his side.
Was it Pennsylvania that they were born in?
As far as we know, he was born in Virginia, but I only started checking in that area because we have some family that's out there. So I just on a chance, on a whim, I thought, someone from the family who was out there could have, in their travels where they're moving and migrating, someone could have moved or migrated one direction or the other, and or come home, so to speak. And they could have traveled with them, but haven't located anything. But that's just one of the the mysteries of the family.
No, that's a big one, and it's probably one that would lead you to some answers on some of the other issues. Okay, I would have to say that if they were born in Virginia and then with this other family in Pennsylvania, if I'm understanding you correctly, then Virginia is probably where you need to be concentrating your search, not Pennsylvania, because the birthplace of the children is going to be where the mother is and likely from.
We don't know anything about the mother at all.
I understand. I understand.
Right. And all of the bulk of our research has been in Virginia. Actually, I would say 99% of our research has been in Virginia. It's just that because we have relatives that did some things in Pennsylvania and came back here and vice versa. I just looked there just on a whim that could be a possibility. But I would say that 99% of our research has been in the state of Virginia.
I kind of like to know, what we can really do to help you further without having to, you said you don't have your information with you, but if you're willing to share it with us, we can at least take a look at, what's the possibility outside of the box that you may have missed. We all miss something along the line. That's why we keep on doing what we're doing,
I understand. I may, write down, the information to get in contact later or see, but there's a few of us, kind of doing it. And, I think at this point, a few of them are kind of enjoying the hunt. So, kind of, even though we're looking for tips and things, I think they're kind of enjoying the hunt.
There are some records in the Virginia area that sometimes people don't know to look at, which is why I'm stating that. And
Right. I've been to the courthouses and in probate records in the event that there was any type of money that may have been allotted to take care of any kind of children that were in the areas that he lived in, and nothing.
Well, if you decide that you would like to have us join in with the research here from this location, we're happy to assist you in any way that we can. And
Thank you.
Specific names and sort that we can look at. And the net is a big one. We can throw that out there, and we have people in different places that we can call on to help as well. I think that the fact that they were not legally adopted is what I'm hearing you say, is you haven't found any documentation. That doesn't mean there isn't some documentation out there. Your window of time is, of course, from the birth year to when they actually come to live with the family that they became part of. And so depending on where that is, that name change is what's important. School age, the educatable records, have you looked at those as well?
Right. I've tried to look for anything I can get my hands on with them, and they're before like with their birth and everything else. Virginia didn't keep records of birth at the time that they were born. There wasn't a requirement for that until I think they stopped recording until 1912, and then you had to record the births again, and then before that you got the delayed birth certificate. So they have delayed birth certificates, so that could be anything, and
Leslie, if I could jump in, I'm a retired librarian. In my the last 20 years of my career, I was a reference librarian at Alexandria Library, Local History and Special Collections. It's true that Virginia didn't collect birth information as a state before that time, but there might be county or city registers of births.
I've combed records at 3 different courthouses so far.
Have you checked Family Search?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have people that have him attributed to people that he's not related to as well. There's a few people who, I guess they see a name that matches the name and they just go ahead and say, oh, this is the same person. Oh, this is Bob Smith. Oh, that's Bob Smith. So they put it there and it's not him. And so there is information that people have recorded in their trees that is definitely completely and totally wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, feel like jotting it down and sending it to us. Kimberly, we'd be more than happy to give it a shot. You never know what rock can be turned over in the right spot with the right person. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to chime in at this point? A share, a question, or a resource that maybe somebody else doesn't know about? Because that's what this session is all about. Yes, Emily.
Is there a beginnersancestry.com or beginners families history map, or where do you start? Because I hear ancestry.com, I hear family search, and so I'm on the yellow brick road and I'm at the start.
So Emily had a question on, what's a recommendation for the beginners of doing genealogy research? Is it family search? Is it ancestry.com? What's the beginning? And I actually like to think of that each and every time that we talk about genealogy, and that is getting the basics together. And getting the basics together, of course, is to do the pedigree chart to the best of your knowledge, to document yourself, your key information that comes from the pedigree chart, your birth, where, when. And we always make that available to people who are a part of the society or joining a little booklet that guides you through that. And I'll make sure that Emily gets one of those today. But we want to tell you to do that, to make sure that you are completing your information correctly to the best of your knowledge, and not to put in information that you're not sure of on that pedigree chart, because you're setting out to get accurate information to create a good pedigree chart. Ancestry.com is your next stop because it is more global. It is, I think, more global in terms of different types of information that is being gleaned and added, updated all the time. It requires a subscription for you to have Ancestry.com at home and at schools and universities. And needless to say that the Salt Lake City family search information is phenomenal. It has a lot of other information in detail that is not necessarily accessible by Ancestry.com. It's also free. Ancestry.com is a cost subscription for you at home and for schools and universities. As a Allen County Library member and resident, we make that Ancestry.com is made available to you free with your membership here at Allen County Library.
Awesome.
And you can research everything that they have available. Family search at home, as I said, is free. For those of you that don't know it, or remind you, and there are records that they provide more concisely, I think is the way to say that. Allison, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they can, you can go in and look at certain information a little bit easier. And they have reference information of material that you can borrow to do research. So family search at home is, I think, an excellent diving board if you don't want to pay a subscription for Ancestry.com. Okay? Then you start filling out the information based on what you find as a beginner, looking at the specifics, the where you were born, when you were born, where they're born, when they got married, when they passed away, and to try to back each and every last one of those vital records with documentation. Okay. You want to make sure that you back them up with documentation. And the reason for that is, of course, where people were born, if whether or not there's actual birth certificate. If there isn't a birth certificate, if it was in an area that was not particularly required to do vital records, as Family Search has done a wonderful job of going out and gleaning that information from courthouses across the country, across the world, where they would provide you with midwives information of birth. An example of that for me, my mother was born in Marion, Perry County, Alabama, and it was in the country. And most people in that area during that particular genre, 1925 was the year of her birth, and prior were delivered by a midwife. And the midwives of those areas across the country, they kept register their book of information that they would turn in to the courthouse periodically. Not necessarily every week, not necessarily every month, you know. So it was when they turned them in is when it was documented. So Family Search has done a wonderful job of gleaning that information, and to get document copies of that. I will tell you that I ordered the microfilm from Family Search for Perry County for a time period, and I copied everything and anything that looked like it was related to an Essex. And if the Essex was spelled E-S-S-I-C, I copied it. If it was spelled E-S-S-I-X, I copied it. You know, so and then there were connecting families. There were Turners, Swains, Stevens, those were all names that I knew were connected to the Essex name, and I copied those too. So it's a good source to go to and to kind of give a foundation for if you don't have it. If you don't have it.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Since we're talking about this, I also would encourage anyone out there. We talked about it on our research tips and this is tips and tools. So in the previous presentations that we did on basics and resources, I want to remind everyone about military records out there quite often. And Kimberly, I know you've done a lot of work from the sound, and I get it. I totally get it. But if by chance you missed anything as far as military records, if anybody, if this the gentleman in question that was adopted or taken in, whichever phrase you want to use, was in the military, perhaps the pension files would share something, because the government is really, really picky about getting good details on somebody that's about to collect a pension. So if he was in the military, did he receive a pension? Have you requested the military file on this gentleman? And or the lady, for that matter, the sister, if she was in the military, getting the pension files would often reveal something that people would be surprised about receiving benefits and that sort of thing. Anybody out there got a little tidbit they want to throw at us?
I have a type of a brick wall. It's my maternal side of the family. My grandmother she's very secretive about her life. She was born in Memphis, but she ended up in Chicago. And she married at the age of 15 to a guy named William Frazier. And she had a son, my uncle. And then she had 2 kids after that, which was my father and a sister, but they weren't Fraziers, they became Fletchers. My father and my aunt never had birth certificates growing up, ever. And when they passed away, they never found their birth certificate. I found my aunt's birth certificate first, and she was not born a Fletcher, she was born Willie Mae Frazier. She was never able to find a birth certificate because she was looking for she was born Maddie Willie Mae Frazier on her birth certificate that she never saw, but she was raised as Willie Mae Fletcher. She couldn't find the birth certificate because it was the wrong name. I found her birth certificate, and on her birth certificate, it was Maddie Willie Mae Frazier, which means she wasn't a Fletcher at birth. My dad, I found his birth certificate. My father's name was Albert Fletcher, but his birth certificate had William Frazier Jr. So they was never able to find their birth certificate. I have a DNA match for half first cousin as a Frazier, whose grandfather was a William Frazier, but I haven't been able to connect because she won't give any information. So my assumption is, or could it have been they were Frazier by birth, and then she didn't tell my grandfather who she married was a Fletcher, or were they Fletchers, but she was married to a Frazier at the time.
So you're trying to determine which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Right.
So what's her maiden name?
My grandmother's maiden name, we don't know. She was a Mitchell or Ingram, and we don't know which one is her maiden name. She never told us. Mitchell, Ingram, or Gaither. Those are 3 names I was able to find. Don't know what was her maiden name.
Excuse me. When was your father born?
My father was born in 1929.
And he was literally born Frazier.
He was born a Frazier, but he never knew that. She gave him the name Albert Fletcher.
She gave him the name Fletcher, but he was born.
She gave him the whole name Albert Fletcher. he wasn't an Albert Fletcher, he was a William Frazier according to his birth certificate.
His birth certificate said William Frazier Jr., but then
Yeah.
later mother calls him Edward Fletcher.
Later on, she calls us. Was there ever an actual change in the courthouse?
No, they grew up without a birth certificate, period.
Was he ever in the military?
He was in the military. Now, the name that I think she just gave him a name, whatever name. When he came home as Baby Frazier, is what I heard listening growing up, just listen to family talk. But when he went into military,
Excuse me, when he came home, where?
From the hospital, he didn't come home with a name at all from the hospital. And then she just gave him a name after she got home.
So he wasn't registered.
Right.
Okay, but this is 1949.
1929.
Oh, 1929. Okay, that's a little bit different. Okay. Okay. 1929.
When he went into the military, he went in, whatever Social Security number that was attached to that name that she gave him, it listed him as Caucasian. He went in as military as Caucasian.
But what name did he go in the military as?
Edward Fletcher.
Oh, Lord. But the birth certificate actually says Frazier.
That he never had, yes.
The birth certificate that he never had. How do you know it's him?
She's on it, and her husband, his birthday is on it.
Okay. And the
So
birth
they were
certificate,
living.
is it a delayed issued birth certificate?
Nope, it's the birth certificate.
How is that he goes into the military under Fletcher?
Because that's what his mother called him. That's what he thought.
Yeah, but I mean, in the military, they do an investigation. They try. There's something glitchy here.
Yeah.
And did you request the military information?
I have his military records, but it's all in Fletcher.
His registration is and everything.
Everything is in Fletcher.
Not
And all my DNA matches, I have all my DNA matches are Frazier's and not Fletcher.
because that's not who he is. So, do we not know who the Frazier is?
On his birth certificate is listed as William Frazier Sr. Now his brother was the oldest, but he wasn't given the name William. He was given, his name was Rodell, but his father was William Frazier as well.
And all the DNA matches come up as Frazier.
Frazier, yes.
Clearly, there is a desire to be connected to Fletcher on the mother's part. Okay.
Fletcher, she married a Fletcher that and she didn't marry Fletcher until I think it was 1950. I think I was born when she married Fletcher.
Was she with him for a while before she married him?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, for no disrespect intended otherwise, I'm strictly doing genealogy here.
Oh, yeah.
They had a common law relationship for several years prior to the actual marriage.
Okay, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question. Was there an application with the marriage?
I found her wedding application to Frazier, and I also found it to Fletcher.
The application.
Where's the license or certificate?
Well, okay, this is so you understand what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the marriage certificate.
Okay.
I'm talking about the application to be approved for marriage.
No, I haven't.
Where were they married at?
She married Frazier in Chicago, and she married Fletcher in I think Williamson County, Tennessee.
Tennessee, 1950. there should be an application. There should be take a look at the application. There's information that's provided on those that we can't know about. We can't know about. Let's try to check and see if there are applications for those marriages.
Okay.
That's one start. I'm really I'm not. It's dark. I'm thinking that Dr. Borders is not on the call. Not Dr. Borders. Yeah, Brothers. I'm sorry. I did a genealogy snap. Dr. Brothers is not on the call on the Zoom right now, but I'm going to ask him about that military, because generally speaking, if there is a birth certificate, that's what the military goes by.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. I can't even imagine why they would just go by this is what his mama calls him. The government really doesn't generally play like that.
I think she took a name, somebody else's name, and gave it to him.
It sounds like she did, but nonetheless,
It's a social security number.
it's not Doc, huh? A different somebody else's social
Yeah, whoever it was. I think the name that, because I have found the Edward Ella Fletcher. His name is Edward Ella Fletcher. I have found one, and he was Caucasian, and that's what he went in the military originally as, because that's what was on his, what she gave as a birth certificate, or whatever, however he got in. And then they realized he wasn't, and he was moved out of that barracks, but that's how he went in. So I don't know what she did.
And I don't think any of us do. I would have to see the records. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'd have to see the records, because I'm not comfortable saying that this is what you found and this is how it is, because again, you have to produce a birth certificate, and the mother saying that that's just who that is and that's the end of it. That's not enough for Uncle Sam.
Now, would the birth certificate be in with his records? Because I have his record, but there's no birth certificate in there. So that's what I was hoping for when I ordered his records.
The entire file?
I did.
Is there anybody else in the room that would like to weigh in on that comment or that particular brick wall? I've not heard of the military just taking, especially in that genre, that they would take somebody at their word for no documentation of birth. And the government has access to this in every state and every county.
It really depends. What war is this? She just came in. I just walked in.
He was born in 1929.
Oh, okay. So my
He
great
went into the
grandfather.
military.
Yeah. So my great grandfather, he didn't have a birth certificate. So he had to bring his mother and his grandmother to some federal courthouse in New Orleans to sign affidavits attesting to his birth.
So if she said she didn't have a birth certificate, if she's okay. Elizabeth, who is a librarian here at Allen County Public Library, indicated that her ancestor had to have the mother and the grandmother come in to the courthouse.
Yeah, that's what my grandmother said. It was some federal courthouse in New
They had to
Orleans.
go into the federal courthouse in New Orleans to verify or confirm that the grandfather,
Yeah,
that her grandfather was born on the day and the parents were who they said it was, because they did not have a birth certificate. And
Okay.
it sounds to me, Marquita, that that's what you're saying, because you're saying that that's what his mother said.
Mhm.
But she, in fact, actually had a birth certificate.
She did, but she told them that their birth certificate was burnt. So she never, matter of fact, my aunt had a hard time in school because you had to have birth certificates in school. And she had the hardest time growing up because she didn't have one. And she missed a lot of school because she couldn't come without a birth certificate. But my grandmother stood by the fact that they burned up. So it had to be something she was hiding with those two.
Well, I know with my great grandfather, what they said as far as like where he was born, it was a lie. He actually would have had a birth certificate if the story was true, but it wasn't true. He actually was hiding something. He was trying to pass as white.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
so it sounds like the same thing here.
Yeah,
Because that's what she's saying, that he actually-
something is
Repeat it for them.
I'm sorry. Elizabeth is saying that, you know, in this particular case, it sounds like they were trying to hide something as well, because according to records, there should have been a birth certificate. It wasn't burned up. They could have produced it, but they didn't. And they were trying to hide the fact that he was
Creole.
he was Creole.
So it's passing.
So he was
He was
passing
passing.
for white.
Mhm. Okay.
So now you're telling me that that's the same thing that she did as far as Edward was concerned.
I think she was hiding with my father and my aunt. I think she was hiding who their father was.
Well, we probably need to know a little bit more about Mr. What was his name?
Fletcher.
Mr. Fletcher, is it? And as well as Mr.
Frazier.
Frazier.
Right?
Mr.
Mhm.
Frazier is what we want to know about.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And the William Frazier, and with that in the Frazier family, it's like it's multiple William Frazier. The DNA message I mentioned with Frazier, somebody had a father that's a William Frazier as well. But I do have a matchup. First, have cousin whose grandfather was William Frazier, but since you won't give me any information to prove it could be the same one, and I don't know when he died. Now, my William Frazier, I know he died in 1950, and he died while he was incarcerated. But I don't know if it's her grandfather, but she is my half first cousin.
Well, and she is your half first cousin, and he was her father,
William was her grandfather.
grandfather. That's him. All there is to it, that's him. And have you looked at, you said he was incarcerated. Did you get the records for that?
I do. I have where he was in Georgia when he was incarcerated, and it looks like he died while he was incarcerated because he didn't have a release date. They had a death date.
He didn't have a release date, but he had a death date.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the charges were and all that stuff?
It was theft. I think he only had he was sentenced to 2 years, but he died before he was released.
When he was released. Say.
We have 2 new people.
We got a couple of Marquita, you have my information, right?
I do.
Okay. And you have the society email.
Yes.
That'll be in the chat as well. Stay in touch, and I would like to get the specifics on this so that we can take a look at it.
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you for sharing. We've got a little time left here, I think, and we have some new people that have joined us. And in case they have something specific they'd like to ask, Edwina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Sorry. Okay. I thought it started at 1. It must have started at noon, huh?
No, 1
Eastern.
Eastern Standard.
Of course, you said you was about to finish. That's why.
How much time do we have?
Because I got 1:07.
It's 2:07 here.
It's 2:07 here.
Oh, y'all aren't on the savings time.
That's okay. It's okay. What's your question?
Oh, I can't find my I know where my grandmother and grandfather on my father's side are. They're buried in Ohio, and I've been to the cemetery, and they had wooden headstones. So a lot of them are destroyed or whatever, so you can't tell where they are. And I went to the county and everything, and nobody has a list. Where would I go to find who's buried there or the numbers or anything?
Is there an office for the cemetery?
No, when I go online, it just has a carekeeper, but I never could get in touch with him. And it's either in Akron, like my grandmother died in at the hospital in Akron, and my grandfather died at home, and I believe it was Massillon, because they moved from Massillon, Canton to Akron. They always stayed in one of those three cities. So I physically went there before COVID, and I saw, like I said, I went to the cemetery, and I got pictures of the cemetery, and I went to the office, but no one there could help me, you know, so I didn't know where else I should go. Should I go to the Historical Society, the county seat, or I didn't know where to go that would keep those records other than them.
Historical Society is definitely a good option.
Would that be the county historical or for Ohio?
County, I would go to the county.
County, okay.
And again, this is Akron, Ohio.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the name of the cemetery? Listen.
I don't have the name of it right here in front of me, but it was a pauper's cemetery. So, but I have the name, I just ain't got it in front of me right here to tell you what the name of it is. But I do have the name of the cemetery. Like I said, I've actually been there.
I asked that because, you know, we are blessed to be in the House of Information, better known as Allen County Public Library. And we do have a horrendous collection of information from various cemeteries and just information in general, of course, across the country about genealogy. So if we knew the name of the cemetery, we could at least check to see if we have any information here. Older records oftentimes were gleaned from individuals doing voluntary work out in the field, and they would list information or share listings that they had acquired from historical resources in the county, and they were compiled, bound, put on the shelves for future research, and more recently, people who have done a lot of work within various societies across the country who contribute to the collection as well. There's another collection.
So I would send it to your society, or I would go to Fort, I will go to the Allen County Library. Is that what you're saying?
Either one, either one.
Okay. Now, if you got a minute, I can.
What am I trying to think of? Is it NSDAR?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm thinking of? That's a they got a lot of old records in that.
Yeah.
Get on the Bigfoot, get out there and walk the cemetery.
And the crazy thing is, I remember my grandmother's funeral and everything. Can't find her death certificate. She died at the hospital, and my grandfather died at home, and I got his death certificate.
When did your grandmother die?
In the, let's see, 60s maybe, 60s, late 60s, early 70s.
What is her name, please?
Annie Thomas, A-N-N-I-E. Okay, I got Hillcrest Cemetery. And it's in, my mistake, it's in Canton, Ohio. So Hezekiah, my grandfather died in Canton. My grandmother died in Akron, but they're both at Hillcrest Cemetery in Canton.
Hold on a second. So Hillcrest Cemetery?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And Guzzy, did you get the names?
I'm trying.
Okay. Tell me the names again of the grandparents.
Hezekiah and Annie Thomas.
And what year did Annie?
Hezekiah died in 1965 and September. And the grandma died. She died like 2 years before that. Let's see, when did she die? She died in August 1965. And he died a month later. That's what I have here.
Okay. Do we have, you don't mind if you could put your email address in the chat, please?
I beg your pardon, I didn't hear your question.
Could you please put your email address in the chat?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We'll see what we can do. And you're looking for where she was interred, where she was actually buried.
Right.
And you're looking for a lot number?
Yes.
Be able to identify where you could put a marker for her.
Right.
And does your grandfather have one?
I don't have a lot number for him, but I do have his death certificate.
Okay, so we look for both.
But for her, I don't have anything, and she died at the hospital, which is crazy to me. I mean, I actually, because I'm the oldest of my siblings, so I actually remember them. So she died at the hospital, and I thought it would be more information for her, but I'm thinking because she died in Akron and then they buried her in Canton, maybe the paperwork got lost.
Necessarily get lost, but you know, you may be needing to look at a different location to get the details.
Okay.
There's a 2022 article about the lack of care at that cemetery and how it's a problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Elizabeth was just sharing with us that there's an article in the newspaper about the lack of care of that cemetery in 2022. And that there are obviously quite a few complaints about them not following through with what their responsibilities are.
So Stark County is planning on turning over the ownership of the cemetery to the Canton Township of Board of Trustees. That means that as of right now, Stark County has control